So, as always, we begin by acknowledging the original stewards of the various lands that we are on. We also acknowledge our ancestors. We acknowledge all those who toiled without compassion or compensation. We acknowledge all the elders and community stalwarts whose shoulders we stand on as we build, share. Okay, so if you can please do us the honors by introducing yourself to our listeners and viewers and tell us about your amazing work.
Excellent, thank you. So I'm Chantal Guay. I'm the CEO of the Standards Council of Canada. SCC was created by the Parliament of Canada 55 years ago. So we're a federal crown corporation. We have only about 160 employees, but because we're the custodian of the standardization system, we have the opportunity to work with thousands of people, volunteers and organizations and companies across the country. So we're really about cooperation and collaboration. Like the system itself is based on that. And it's really at the center of the work that we do. Unfortunately, because we have been doing great work for a very long time, standards have been used in Canada for more than 100 years. People don't know that we are there behind, ensuring that there is an invisible shield that protects them or helps them. And I'll give you some examples of that. When you get up in the morning, you might be a coffee drinker, right? You turn on your coffee machine and you don't ask yourself, am I going to get a shock from it, right? Am I going to get electrocuted? Well, that's the standardization system working for you, making sure that anything that it has an electrical component in Canada has been designed and built according to standards, and that it has also been tested and certified to make sure that you're protected. That's one example. You turn on your tap, to drink some water. Water is safe in Canada, most places. We still have a lot of work to do in the north, but this is because we have defined over the years standards, and we make sure that the water is tested and is safe to drink. And another good example, you have your cell phone, your smartphone, right? And you leave your home where you have Wi-Fi and you go somewhere else where there's Wi-Fi. You don't wonder, am I going to be able to connect? If you get the password, you connect, right? Again, it's an example of what the standardization system has been offering to people living in Canada to facilitate their work and to make them safe. So again, I mentioned two very important parts. The parts where we define what kind of really the level, let's say you set a minimum requirements and specifications, either for a product or service. That's the standards part. And again, there's tens of thousands of people in Canada involved, depending on what kind of standard we're involved in or is being designed. And then we want to make sure that those standards are complied with, right? So that's what we call conformity assessment. It's also part of the system, and it's where you actually gain trust in the service of the product you're getting. And a lot of Canadians will know that when they purchase something, they might find a little mark on products. It's a certification mark, and people don't ask themselves with that. They don't ask themselves, is it going to be safe? For example, they know it's going to be safe. So again, great work from the system to help and make sure that there's health and safety in Canada. But we have also been in the past years working in other areas than I would say our traditional work in the technical area. We've expanded and we've worked on diversity and inclusion. So when the federal government started the 50-30 program, the challenge for corporations to consider 50% of women and 30% of visible minority, we work with the Diversity Institute to design standards to help and support that. So organizations had tools to do it. We've done work in mental health and substance use. So more and more people understand that standards are very valuable to reach an objective. It can be an objective of safety, but it can also be an objective of social good or important impact to the community. So we play a very good, important role in Canada because we bring together those that develop standards, the regulators, the businesses. We also work very closely with governments to tell them and help them with their own objectives and using standardization to reach them, because it's a very efficient way to reach an objective. Again, we worked also to ensure that those that check that standards are complied with are competent to do so, so that you can trust in the end. So that's a very important part of our work. We also are representing Canada at the International Standards Forum. You might have heard of ISO. There's two groups internationally, ISO and IEC, and represent Canada there. And that's very important because we want to make sure that those international standards are designed are going to meet the needs and the requirements of Canadian organizations and people living in Canada. We worked on that with a very large group of experts. And what we're really, I would say, and it's your next question, what's really fantastic about this invisible shield is that the work we do actually has an impact on people every day. And that's fantastic. That's really rewarding, when you work in that area.
Absolutely. Having that impact in community is amazing. That's what this work is all about, you know? So that's awesome. So what inspires you about the work that you do?
I would say that that's increasing that impact. It's shining the light on this incredible tool that we have that is part of what we call the quality infrastructure in Canada. And our vision is to put the power of standardization to work for all. So it's exciting because we know, like, I know that I'm surrounded here by a structure, and if we didn't have standards and certification, I would probably have issues with that structure, or we would not be able to have this conversation digitally this morning, right? So it has a very big impact on organizations and economies, because there is a very close connection between how much a country is involved in standardization and the increase of the gross domestic product. So at the macroeconomic side, but then on the other side, there is this impact on people every day. And for example, about 15 years ago, we started working on a very important challenge for everybody on Earth, the climate change. You probably know that the northern communities have been impacted for more than 25 years, and they are impacted a lot faster than we are. Like the temperature rises is going twice as fast. So those communities have been greatly impacted by climate change. And 15 years ago, we started working with them to find solution, right? When what you thought was rock before is melting and your houses and everything is built. So what's really, really inspiring is that fact that at the macro level, you're making an impact and a difference, but also at the micro level for communities, but also for businesses. We've worked a lot with innovators to help them access markets using standardization, and seeing those organizations being successful and more successful because you help them is extremely inspiring. And I would say the last piece is that people involved in standardization are absolutely fantastic. They're committed, they're engaged, they see the value and the power standardization has, and they volunteer. They're not afraid to give their time. And most of them are extremely passionate. So that's also very inspiring. And that includes my team. I have a privilege to work with my team. I have a fantastic board as well. So that's also, people wanting to make a difference. That speaks really loud to me.
Oh, that's awesome. 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 So now on the flip side, what challenges or barriers have you faced in your work, and how have you overcome them, or, in the process of overcoming them?
So standards are used everywhere in everything. So that in itself creates a challenge, right? Because we're a small team. We cannot be involved in everything. So I would say that certainly since I've been leading the organization, we have spent a lot of effort and energy to prioritize, like to really look at, and the question we ask ourselves is, where do we believe we can have the most impact, right? And what we've done to kind of really understand that is 4 years ago, we did a very broad consultation across Canada, with all kinds of interested parties, academics, businesses, regulators, people involved in standardization. And we asked them, in the next 10 years, what should be our focus? Where should we be focusing our effort and energy, considering that, like any organization, we have limited resources? And out of that came the National Standard Strategy for Canada, where we have really identified where we believe, or we were told, where should we put our effort. So that's one, I would say, barrier. And it remains, if you, obviously we're involved in digital economy, we're involved in climate change and sustainability. Those are enormous topics, right? So we still, within those that we said our priority, we have to really hone in and work with our interested party to define what's the best place to really have impact. So that's one important one. The second one, and it's related to the invisibility of the shield that standardization is, that I spoke about, is raising awareness. We have been so successful, not just the SCC, but the standardization system itself in 100 years, that we're like, people don't see it. People don't think twice about, oh, without this, I would not be safe. So we have to continue to raise awareness and outreach. And because it's relatively technical, it's not always easy to express and to convince and to make people understand, how standardization can help them and protect them, etc. So that's a big part of a lot of the work that we're doing. And what we've decided, again, from a focus perspective, is really having those conversations with decision makers, either within the government or within businesses, but really talking to those that make decisions so they understand better the power, and offering them our support so they can use standardization more and more. Because there's a system that is there, it's ready to be used more. So there's a lot of efficiencies in using the system that exists instead of creating something new on the side, right? And that's, again, because a lot of people don't know about the system. It's things that happen, right? There's a parallel system or a parallel group that is created that is not necessarily helpful in reaching the objective.
Yeah, totally understand. So do you have anything new that you're working on? Anything that you want to amplify outside of what you were saying?
So obviously, with the trade war that is happening right now, because standards are 90% of world trade is based on standards. Without standardization, there's no trade. So obviously, with the trade war, there's been an increased focus on the work that we can do. So we've been really double downing on this. So both from an internal trade perspective, we've been working for decades with regulators across the provinces and territory to reduce those barriers. So we continue to do that. And we're also doing that at the international level. And, we're a part of the government. So, when the government suggests that we diversify the markets for the businesses, and we don't just, for example, focus on the US and China, and they've developed a strategy for Indo-Pacific, well, we're following that, right? So we've had conversations with countries over there in the Indo-Pacific region to increase, again, the possibility of business to be able to have access to markets. And again, because without standards, it's very difficult to trade. We're kind of at the center of the conversations. We're kind of the enabler of expanding the markets. That's a key part of our focus this year. The second one is obviously for everyone, the digital transformation, the digital economy, what's happening with AI, how is it going to impact society in particular, right? Around, all the privacy issues, all the transparency issues. So we're working diligently at the national level, but also at the international level to make sure that we have standards, and we were able to push for the development on a number of them about, responsive, transparent AI that can be used for good, right? There's a way to use AI for good, but there's that really fine line that it can go on the dark side, and we're working with our colleagues from around the world to make sure that we walk that fine line and we don't end up on the dark side. And we continue our work on climate change. It's so important. I'm a grandmother. I'm really concerned about the state of the earth that we are leaving behind for my grandkids. I'm also an environmental engineer by training. So this topic of impacts of climate change, in particular to very vulnerable communities, and this, but women, children, disabled, like all the vulnerable communities that we have in Canada are the most impacted by climate change. So that's a very important part of the work that we continue to do. And it's been, again, 15 years in the making. And we also have an important focus internally. We want to be excellent as an organization. Culture is super important. We've been rewarded as a most admired corporate culture for the past 5 years. We want to continue. We're nothing without the people that are within the organization that is doing the work. So we want to make sure that we construct a very good environment so they can thrive and they can be at their best. That way we know we're going to be successful as an organization.
Right. That's awesome. Yeah, I'm a grandmother too, by the way. So I know exactly what you're saying. I know exactly what you're saying. And the AI issue is really huge. Actually, there was an article, I saved it. 16 billion passwords from Apple, Facebook, and Google were just leaked. So this is just an ongoing issue where you have the thin line, like you were saying. AI can be used for good, and AI, however they got access to that, can also be used for bad. So we have to be very careful and monitor those things on a consistent basis. So it's so true. So true.
Absolutely. And it cannot remain a black box, right? We have to
That's it.
understand what's going on. We have
That's
to
it.
have, it's important to know what's being done with your data, right? And
Oh, so
that's,
important.
yeah.
So important. Awesome. So let's say ask you real brief, like how do you feel about the future as we talk about it? How do you feel about the future of social impact in Canada?
Uh, I would say that I'm very proud that I live in Canada and not south of the border, because I find that there's been quite a bit of advancing issue, like the social issues, and I think it's essential. I think it's at the core of who we are as communities, and I'm hopeful in one sense, but I'm also seeing what's happening in the rest of the world. And we have a very, very diverse staff. Like it's really fantastic because we know that it brings so much more to the organization in terms of innovation, considering problems holistically and all of that. And for me, it's so important we continue to do that. But there's, elsewhere there's pushback. So I really hope that we're not going to I hope that we're going to continue on that path, because money is never enough, right? Money is important. You have to survive. You have to be able to pay your groceries, but there's much more than that to life. And being in the community and being in society is crucial if we want to be, I guess, successful as a species, right? I think focusing on individuals only, I don't think is the future of humanity. And I certainly hope that And I look at how we design standards, it's always a community. And that's why we are able to co-design together amazing solutions, because we are looking at all perspectives, and it's so powerful. So I just hope that we're going to continue on that path, because certainly for my business, it's essential and it has delivered amazing results.
Of course, we are very, very hopeful. And, like we're grandmothers, so we know that the future is here and it's still going to continue. So we're leaving a legacy, of
Yep.
change, even if it's very minute. We're still doing things that will help the planet, will help people and community. And we can feel a little bit better knowing that what we're doing is making that change,
Yeah.
causing,
Yeah.
yeah, a
Absolutely.
positive change. So that's great. What does success look like to you
Well,
and your
certainly from
colleagues,
a
if
bit,
you
yeah,
would?
certainly from a business perspective is to see standardization continuing to be used more and more, because of the great value it brings, and how it happens, how it's created, bringing people together to design solutions. So for me, that's certainly from a business, but obviously, I want a better world, right? I want to improve. That's I guess it's in my DNA as well. As an engineer, I want to find solution. As a person, I want to continuously improve myself. And I think that I want the same thing for, our communities and our country. How can we be better? And I'm, like you, very interested, because I have two little ones that, are very small, but they're going to live in that community, and I want them to thrive. I want them to be happy. So it sounds cheesy, but it's really that. It's like I do care about what their future. And I have a daughter that is only 24, right? She has her life in front of her. So what can I do to make the future better? And I'm lucky, because I worked in an area where we can do that. We can help. We can support.
Mm. Oh, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. Wow, this has been a very, very impactful interview, Chantal. I really appreciate you so much. My last question for you is any closing thoughts or calls to actions at this time?
Yeah, I think you've kind of felt my passion about the work we do in standardization. And I would say, please, if you're not aware, if you don't know, please come to our website. We are always looking for experts in all kinds of fields, technical, but also social, etc. And I'm sure that you would enjoy getting involved, and that you would make a difference. That's a great way to make a difference. It's again an amazing community of people that are very committed and engaged to make the world a better place. So I invite you to join us.
Awesome. Well, Chantal, we appreciate you so much. We thank you for taking the time today, and we wish you much success, much health to you in the coming days and months and years. We all have to really, however you pray or just ask for, that awareness and that consciousness to keep going.
Yeah.
It's never easy, and we see how the world is playing out right now, but we are making that change. And so in our hearts, we're doing what we have to do to make the change. So on behalf of SETSI, once again, we thank you so much for participating today.
Thank you so much for your time. It was delightful. Have a great rest of the day. Thank you.
You're so welcome. So we will close the way that we began by acknowledging the original stewards of the various lands that we are on. We also acknowledge our ancestors. We acknowledge all those who toiled without compassion or compensation. We acknowledge our elders and community stalwarts, and also, whose shoulders that we stand on as we we stand on as we build, share in liberation and in sovereignty. So thank you once again, and we'll definitely be in touch, okay?
Thank you so much. Have a great day.
Okay, dear. Bye-bye.
Bye.